ईश्वरं महेश्वरं गणेश्वरं गजेश्वरं सुरेश्वरं नमामि ॐ विनायकं लोकशङ्करं नमामि ॐ विनायकं समस्तलोकशङ्करम् वदनानन्दसदन मातङ्गवदनानन्दसदन महादेव शिव शम्भो नन्दन महादेव शम्भो नन्द मातङ्गवदनानन्दसदन मातङ्गवदनानन्दसदन माय विनाशक मूषिकवाहन माय विनाशक मूषिकवाहन माय विनाशक मूषिकवाहन माय विनाशक मूषिकवाहन माता महेश्वरी भवानी नंदन माता महेश्वरी भवानी नंदन महागणपते मंगलचरणा महागणपते मंगलचरणा महागणपते मंगलचरणा महागणपते मंगलचरणा मातङ्गवदनानन्दसदन मातङ्गवदनानन्दसदन विनाशक मूषिकवाहन माय विनाशक मूषिकवाहन माय विनाशक मूषिकवाहन माय विनाशक मूषिकवाहन महेश्वरी भवानी नंदन माता महेश्वरी भवानी नंदन महागणपते मंगलचरणा महागणपते मंगलचरणा महागणपते मंगलचरणा महागणपते मंगलचरणा मातङ्गवदनानन्दसदन मातङ्गवदनानन्दसदन नन्दसदन आनन्दसदन दामोदरा मुरलीधरा भुवनत्रया हे भुवनायका भुवनत्रया यथा हे माधवा हे मधुसूदना हे माधवा हे मधुसूदना करुणाकरा हे शररक्षका करुणाकरा हे शररक्षका मनमोहना हे यदुनंदना हे यदुनंदना हे माधवा हे मधुसूदना हे माधवा हे दीनावना भव भयभञ्जना दीनावना भव भयभञ्जना जगन्मोहना हे जगन्नायका जगन्मोहना हे जगन्नायका हे माधवा हे मधुसूदना हे माधवा हे मधुसूदना हे दीनावना हे मनमोहना हे यदुनंदना मनमोहना हे यदुनंदना हे माधवा हे मधुसूदना हे माधवा हे मधुसूदना हे माधवा हे मधुसूदना ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शांति शांति शांति। Together we will chant Bhaj Govindam verses 5 to 15, please. Bhaj Govindam, Govindam, Bhaj Mudhamate. Samprapte sannihite kale, nahi nahi rakshati dukrun karane. यावद्वित्तोपार्जनसक्तः तावन्निज परिवारो रक्तः पश्चाज्जीवति जर्जर देहे वार्तां कोऽपि न पृच्छति गेहे यावत् पवनो निवसति देहे तावत् पृच्छति कुशलं गेहे गतवति वायौ देहः पाये भार्या बिभ्यति तस्मिन् काये बालस्तावत् क्रीडासक्तः तरुणस्तावत् तरुणीसक्तः वृद्धस्तावत् चिन्तासक्तः परमे ब्रह्मणि कोऽपि न सक्तः काते कान्ता कस्ते पुत्रः संसारोऽयमतीव विचित्रः कस्य त्वं कः कुत आयातः तत्त्वं चिन्तय तदिह भ्रातः सत्संगत्वे निस्संगत्वं निस्संगत्वे निर्मोहत्वम् निर्मोहत्वे निश्चलतत्वं निश्चलतत्वे जीवन्मुक्तिः वयसि गते कः कामविकारः शुष्के नीरे कः कासारः क्षीणे वित्ते कः परिवारो ज्ञाते तत्त्वे कः संसारः मा कुरु धन जन यौवन गर्वं हरति निमेषात् कालः सर्वम् मायामयमिदमखिलं बुद्ध्वा ब्रह्मपदं त्वं प्रविश विदित्वा दिनयामिन्यौ सायं प्रातः शिशिरवसन्तौ पुनरायातः कालः क्रीडति गच्छत्यायुः तदपि न मुञ्चत्याशावायुः काते कान्ता धनगतचिन्ता वातुल किं तव नास्ति नियन्ता त्रिजगति सज्जन संगतिरेका भवति भवार्णवतरणे नौका जटिलो मुण्डीलुञ्चितकेशः काषायाम्बर बहुकृतवेषः पश्यन्नपि च न पश्यति मूढो रुदरनिमित्तं बहुकृतवेषः अंगं गलितं फलितं मुण्डं दशनविहीनं जातं तुण्डम् वृद्धो याति गृहीत्वा दण्डं तदपि न मुञ्चत्याशापिण्डम् भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते सम्प्राप्ते सन्निहिते काले नहि नहि रक्षति डुक्रुन्करणे We have been studying the chapter 12 of Vedanta Treatise, the chapter titled The Four Yogas. In the previous class, we covered a little bit of portion in Karma Yoga, path of action, and we will have that portion, rest of them also covered, but the whatever we have covered so far, we will have a quick visit, quick recap, so that we will have the thought flow going. So basically the path of action, which is designed for the people who are neither the predominantly intellectual category reasoning developed, nor for those people who are predominantly emotional devotional category feelings developed. They are neither intellectuals nor devotional. Such people who are very active, dynamic are recommended the path of action, karma yoga. So the technique of how to execute actions in our day-to-day living, this is the portion which we are performing day-to-day obligatory duties, day-to-day activities, helplessly functioning. But how to function, what is the modus operandum, is going to be spelt it out this portion of the title topic, path of action. So karma means action. Karma yoga is the path of action dedicated, designed for the persons of highly active category who are all very active and dynamic, who are fidgety, who all the time workaholics. This is the best portion or best topic to guide them to have a perfection, which is nothing but a peace of mind within and success in the world towards the higher goal of self realization. So, action is a must, inaction is death. Life symbolizes action. You are alive because you are active. The moment action ceases, life is extinct. You are no more. You are dead and gone. So, action is the symbol of existence, of life. So, since action is inevitable, as long as you are alive, since every human being is constituted of these desires, which are vasanas, which are we are made up of, these vasanas helplessly, forcefully propel our life towards actions by themselves. They manifest, they express themselves into the vasanas, into thoughts, thoughts into desires, desires into action. This is the chronology, the order of the how we come into active category, we execute actions in day to day life. So a human is bound to act. Even highly inactive person is also active. By not doing, he is doing activities voluntary or involuntary. Sorry. So, but is free to choose the type of action, what to do, what not to do. Is the freedom is provided only for human being, the type of action he executes. So karma and karma yoga provides the course of perfect action, right action, ideal action, which leads individual towards the perfection, towards God realization, towards a spiritual evolution, you can call it. So, if you want to evolve to higher heights of happiness, higher heights of success, which is the self improvement, self development, self realization, is a common for every human being. One has to know the technique of perfecting right actions in day to day life. So, except a human being, all other creatures, all other living beings are have a beaten program, a computerized program, a built-in program is already embedded in their system of life. They don't have the choice of action what human possesses. So they conduct themselves in nature of their own particular species of collective vasanas. They just live their whatever pattern of living, which we also aware that the carnivorous animals, which are ferocious and cruel and destructive, they are fixed for their life. They just live on the flesh. Sorry. Whereas the herbivorous animals merely display their distinct and different natures of the vegetarianism, and then they live and they die. The cow and the the horses and elephants, they are all herbivorous. So except humans, all other living beings have no freedom to choose their actions apart from what their nature is. They live and die in their particular species what they belong. Since human beings alone confronted with this problem of choosing their action, the path of action is recommended. The path of action is laid down for their guidance and to their better of life, better in life towards higher and higher evolution. So, the karma yoga, one has to learn and practice it in their day to day living. So, this is the what we so far covered, and we also have this anatomy The body, physical body, is that which executes actions in day-to-day life. So the body by itself cannot act. It is the engine, the mind and intellect within the body which propels the body to any action what the body executes. So the body by itself cannot act on its own. It is either the mind, manas, or the buddhi, intellect, both combined that propels the body to action. So we have got to know the quality of actions what we are producing based on the type of mind and intellect, and we got to know what they are made up of, what they are constituted of. So the mind is nothing but sum total of likes and dislikes, the feelings and emotions, the feelings and emotions mind is full of, and the intellect is that which is reasons and judges, decides the course of action. So these are the two equipments which propel the body to any activity what the body produces. Now, in practical life, you either operate at the level of the mind's likes and dislikes propel your actions, or you let your intellect drive your actions by reason and judgment, decide the course of action. So the action could emerge from the intellect or from the mind. It depends upon what equipment is functioning behind that action is important. You got to examine, in which case your intellect may approve or disapprove and go along with what your mind chooses to do, or disapprove and then decide the course of action, opposed to what mind's whims and fancies. So it depends upon the collective decision of the mind and intellect, depending upon the relative strengths of the mind and intellect, the action emerges. So the problem with the mind is that it has no direction, no dimension. So mind can ask you for anything. It is just impulses. Indiscriminate behavior is residing in the mind. So mind is, that's why compared to a child in you, intellect is the adult in you. So mind is like a monkey. It has no direction, there's no dimension. It can prove detrimental if it is not governed, policed by the intellect. It is even proved detrimental, even fatal at times. The mind entertains endless desires. The mind has a natural tendency to cultivate more and more desires, boundless desires, uncontrollable desires, and those desires propel the actions directly, could prove fatal, detrimental, and fatal at times. It can never be satisfied. The mind can never be satiated, satisfied. The desires are compared to the fire. You got to compare the example of a fire, the element of fire. When the fire is there, you can supply logs of wood to the fire. Fire consumes all the fuel, all the wood, firewood you supplied, and it is ready for more. Similarly, your mind's desires are uncontrollable, insatiable, you can never satisfy them. Hence, you cannot afford to let your actions, you cannot let your actions, you cannot ill afford to let your actions directly driven by the indiscriminate demands of the mind. You got to intervene through your powerful intellect. Intellect must govern, must maintain a constant vigilance, supervision over the mind's activity. Mind may take you for a ride and destroy you. Uncontrolled mind can prove detrimental. That does not mean that you discard all that the mind likes and only court what it dislikes. It doesn't mean that. Your intellect only makes sure that you take to the right course of action, you take to the perfect direction, regardless of the pressures exerted by the likes and dislikes of your mind, irrespective of whatever may be the interests of the mind. Your intellect must consult it, and you should have a discretion about the type of activity you are executing. It should always be supervised, policed by the intellect, because your likes and dislike, your attraction and aversion may prove attachment and revulsion for things and beings, and actions turn out to be your greatest enemy. The enemy is not outside the world, it is within you. That's why the great Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, who is a perfect human being? Raga Dvesha Viyuktaistu Vishayanindriyaischaran Atma Vishyair Vidheyatma Prasadam Adhigachyati. Prasadam means peace of mind. So those people who are wise people, who disconnect likes and dislikes and function, and by performing obligatory duties and responsibility among the sense objects of the world, they are living, but controlling using the intellect. Such people only able to enjoy the peace of mind and the quality of their actions, which leads to productivity and success, and ultimately they will gradually evolve to the greater heights of spiritual evolution. So the likes and dislikes are your deadliest enemies. Your attractions and aversions, your attachments and revulsion for things and beings and actions turn out to be the greatest enemy, says the Vedanta. Work against you, they give you suffering and sorrow. Few realize their impact in day-to-day life, in one's life. If not governed by the powerful intellect, they could lead, the likes and dislikes could lead you to self-destruction. That's what the people suffer today. They are individually, they suffer disease, depression, divorce, and stress. And in the global level, there is a militancy, terrorism, and vandalism. These are all happening because of whims and fancies of the mind, likes and dislikes of the mind. If not governed by the intellect, they could lead you to destruction. People are not aware of the devastating effect of the nature of this mind. So, worse still, they nurture the mind, they nourish the mind, they pamper the mind, which destroying you. So they pamper the mind, they nourish the mind, they nurture the mind, and such a mind with full of likes and dislikes creates a havoc. Whatever peace is gone, and you get into suffering and sorrow, go through the pain and suffering. The only way, the practical way to circumvent this impact of likes and dislikes is to rise above them, grow above them, by gaining the knowledge about the higher values, by pitching up a higher ideal, a goal beyond your ego and egocentric desires. You got to fix a common cause. Suppose you are at the family unit, you must think in terms of society, a city, a community at large. For the welfare of their community, you must dedicate, you fix your goal with the intellect and channelize your actions towards the higher purpose by pitching up a higher ideal in life. An ideal is set is a higher goal, a common cause that you choose to work for above your self-centered interest in life. You don't work for personal benefit only. You think about larger cause wherein your interest and attention is focused towards the higher values of life rather than your selfish ends, just satisfying your personal benefits. If you do not dedicate your life to an higher ideal, if you do not channelize your activities towards the higher purpose, higher goal in life beyond your selfish ends, you will remain enslaved by your own likes and dislikes, and they destroy you. Whatever piece is left, it will be consumed and you will be reduced to suffering and sorrow. This is the law. Hence, you got to carefully study and reflect upon the importance of fixing a higher ideal in life. What are you working for? What is your purpose of your living? Why are you living? What for you are living? This must be clearly defined. Are you working for your personal life alone, or are you working for impersonal goal, a country welfare, a city welfare, a welfare of the whole humanity? As much higher purpose as you can conceive, you can think of, you can fix an ideal, a goal beyond your personal boundary, a personal periphery, so that you have the direction to work for, and which will give you the enough potential to strength, to peace of mind, to be successful. Hence, carefully study and reflect upon the importance of fixing a higher ideal in life. The greater the ideal, greater is your peace of mind, greater is your energy levels. As high an ideal as you can reach within your realistic capacity, you got to raise your goal as much as you can according to your capacity. Make sure you choose a realistic ideal. A family, a person at the family boundary could think about the social community. A person is at the community level could think about the country welfare. A person at the country level could think about the whole humanity all over the world. Welfare of the humanity he can work for, can think of. A person who is at the humanity level could think about all the creatures all over the world for the welfare of the whole universe, the cosmos, depending upon your capacity to conceive and reach and help the cause. That is the higher the ideal, greater is your zeal and enthusiasm to work for. You get inspired, you get a commensurate happiness and productivity. So the successful nature. So as high an ideal as you can reach within your capacity, one should make sure that the chosen ideal must be realistic and work towards it. When your intellect is fired with an ideal, when the intellect has the fixation on the ideal, on the goal, on the purpose, on the cause, you get enthusiasm. You get fired with the ideal, your mind's likes and dislikes slowly diminish, lose their influence. persuasive influence. The ideal that you set for life could be a relative ideal or could be absolute ideal, depending upon the ideal you fix. The relative ideal could be a goal beyond your personal and family. It could be community welfare or could be country welfare, could be whole humanity or the world at large. Or the absolute ideal is to reach the supreme God. The self-realization is your goal, your ultimate aim. It could be relative or absolute. A relative ideal is that which is directed towards the welfare of your community or country or to humanity, to all living beings. Whereas the absolute ideal would be to realize the supreme self which you are. You are the Atman, not what you believe yourself to be. That could be the ideal, whatever you can realistically conceive and fix to the extent you have the capacity. So, attain the ultimate state of enlightenment could be one of the highest ideal one can think of. So, the Karma Yoga is the path of action envisages. First thing is an ideal in life. You have to have a purpose in life. Your intellect must be fixed on the purpose in life. What are you working for? What is your mission in life? What is your goal in life? What you are working at the back of your mind, purpose behind, is the first idea one must have in Karma Yoga. One who follows this path of Karma Yoga is called Karma Yogi. A person who is practicing yoga is called Yogi. Yoga is derived from Sanskrit root yuj, means to join, to unite. Implied that you got separated from what is the source called the Supreme Self. So, by yoga is nothing but actions dedicated to the achievement of the union with the Supreme Self. Dedicates his life's activity to the ideal he has set, the absolute or relative. So, as his mind is focused, mind is fixed, channelized, focused on the noble cause for which he is working for, the Karma Yogi works while the physical body, the body must be in dynamic activity, fully engaged in constant action. There is no holiday, there is no weekend or vacation, there is no premature retirement. Today, the people look for weekends and vacations because they are not practicing the Karma Yoga. They are only working for personal ends, selfish, self centered interests. Such people will be dissipating their energies and they could not be peaceful and happy. They are agitated, as a result of which they look for weekends and vacation. They want rest. But the famous quotation of Swami Ramatirtha, who is explaining this Karma Yoga, a person who is a Karma Yogi, he defines the action as intense work is rest. The concept of rest is work itself. Work itself helps you peace of mind as well as prosperity as well as rest also. Intense work is rest because you are working for the highest ideal of self realization. Therefore, there is no selfish interest, there is no selfish motive. Therefore, the infinite energy will come out. That's why it says intense work is rest. So his mind is focused on the noble cause for which he works, while his body, the body is engaged in constant action. All along, the intellect ensures that the mind and the body both do not slip away from the path chosen set for the purpose. The actions are channelized towards the achievement of the goal set for oneself, which is either self-development or self-realization. When the mind and intellect are thus pursuing a selfless ideal, a self-realization, God realization, the body becomes energized. It body generates energy. There is no dissipation of energy because there is no worries of the past, anxieties for the results of the future. The mind is in the present because of the powerful intellect and channelize the mental and intellectual energies towards the achievement of the self-realization. The body becomes energetic to work, energized. The more he works, the more energy it releases. So, because the action brings about energy, the more active you are, the more energetic you become, is the law of life. Therefore, people misunderstand the person who starts acting. He gets tired, he gets bored, he gets fatigued. This is the misunderstanding. Work can never tire you, work can never give you disturbance. The disturbance is caused by mental worries of the past, anxieties for the results of the future. Therefore, it is the mind dissipates the energy, not the body. The body energizes to act. The more he works, the more energy it releases. And with the greater energy, work turns to be beneficial, work turns to be a perfect and dynamic actions, and dynamic capacity will be fully executed to reach the ultimate state of enlightenment. So the relative goal or absolute goal, the methodology is nothing but the mind must be back of the action in the present and not allowing the mind to slip into the past worries and future anxieties by a powerful intellect is called the concentration and consistency. Once you practice this concentration and consistency, which is nothing but the path of action, karma yoga, the achievement of this self-realization, the greater energy is produced, where it turns out to be a dynamic. Therefore, the path of action further ensures that the energy gained is not dissipated through unproductive channels. So there are three unproductive channels through which the existing energy dissipates. The three distinct ways through which the energy drains away. One way is by the mind's worrying about the past memories, and second one is through anxiety over the fruits of actions. Whatever you executed your action, you all the time slip into the enjoyment of the fruit of action. That is the second dissipating channel. And the third one is the excitement in the present action. You get too much favorish, too much over excitement over the present action. Your mind gets disturbed and dissipating your mental energies, which is the third channel. So, however lofty an ideal be, your mind tends to slip into the past or the slip into the future or in the excitement in the present. It's the nature of the mind. So these channels, it loses its concentration. Mind loses its concentration on the present action because of lack of strong and developed intellect. When the your intellect must exercise its strength to hold the mind. When the intellect exercises its strength to hold the mind on the action, whenever it strays away, it has to pull back and put it back onto the track. That is a practice of concentration. The intellect must exercise its strength to hold the mind on to the present whenever it strays away. You must learn, one must learn to clip the past, disconnect the past, and clip the future, disconnect the future while acting in the present. The past and future must be disconnected and keep the mind in the present activity. Plunge into action, present activity. Then the actions, whatever executed, becomes perfect action, right action, noble action, ideal action, and perfect in the that particular action which is executed in this manner will produce productivity. Action becomes successful materially, and you are also successful spiritually. It could be used in any field. It doesn't matter what you do in life, but how you do it. You can be any field of activity you belong, but the modus operandum is you do not allow the mind to slip into the past worries or the anxieties for the results of the future or the excitement in the present. Thus, when you practice all these ways and keep the mind in the present, then the action becomes perfect and it will turn out beautiful results materially and spiritually. So, when the pursuit of the appropriate yogas, so depending upon your constitutional requirement of your personality, how much you are predominantly intellectual, how much you are predominantly emotional, how much you are active category based on your proportion, you could administer these yogas, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Jnana Yogas. All these appropriate yogas according to your percentages of your personality. Thus, if you consistently execute the actions in these three avenues at the body level, mind level, and intellectual level, gradually the mind is freed from the bulk of vasanas. The bulk of desires will drop away. The more you evolve spiritually, the desires will reduce. Spiritual evolution is directly proportional to reduction of your desires. Less number of desires, more evolved you are. It is a law of life. The more you are grown means you got to entertain less desires. And zero desires, you reach the ultimate state of enlightenment. Human being minus desires is equal to God. God plus desire is equal to human being. So, reduction of desires is a result of your growth in the personality. So, with appropriate yogas, according to your constitutional personality requirement, you got to administer the particular yogas in a specific format of Jnana Yoga for the intellect, Bhakti Yoga for the mind, Karma Yoga for body. If you constantly pursue and consistency, if you maintain, your mind is freed from this bulk of desires. The desires drop off and you develop a sense of dispassion. You get disinterested in the world and interested in the Supreme Self. That is called dispassion, a renunciation, a sense of renunciation, a feeling of renunciation set into the mind. You have no value for the whatever the world offers because you have value for the self-realization, God realization. You fixed your interest and attention on the discovery of the self. Then you develop a sense of dispassion when you perform Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga at the level of the body, mind, and intellect consistently. You drop your bulk of desires, your mind is free, you develop sense of renunciation, your mind withdrawn from its involvement and attachment in the affairs of the worldly things no more excite you anything. Such mindset, such growth you experience indicated by the diagram Oparati, Dharana, concentration, Dhyana, meditation, and Samadhi. The Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga and Jnana Yoga, these three yogas, spiritual disciplines, help you withdraw from the world because they reduce the desires and you are able to concentrate on whatever you are doing, general concentration. And then when you sufficiently practice general concentration on whatever you do, then you get on to the specific single pointed concentration, which is the meditation, dhyana, and with the sustained and deep meditation, you reach the Supreme Self, the Samadhi, the ultimate state of enlightenment. So when Uparati is set in, you develop mental concentration. So mind is naturally fixed to the higher goal, higher purpose. Keep the mind on the thought flow of the Supreme Self, mental concentration, which is called dharana, with sustained abstraction from the world, with a sustained withdrawal, abstraction from the world, and concentration upon the higher, on the Supreme Self, you enter into the last stage of meditation, dhyana, the single pointed concentration, which is the deep meditation. In deep meditation, a single pointed thought ultimately dissolves itself, and in absolute silence, in that dynamic silence, in that profound silence, you attain samadhi, which is the spiritual enlightenment. This is the purpose and goal of human existence. So these are the yogas, four yogas. So we have covered the entire chapter of the four yogas. So the entire chapter is clearly defining the various yogas, the four spiritual disciplines, what are all we covered. So as you are aware, the Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion, Jnana Yoga, path of knowledge, and Karma Yoga, path of action, what we covered today, and Hatha Yoga, path of compulsion, the forceful thing. All these four disciplines have designed to suit the distinct class of people, categories of human beings, because there are predominantly intellectuals which are recommended the Jnana Yoga, predominantly emotional, which are who are called the devotional people, path of Bhakti Yoga, predominantly active, who are the people who are neither intellect developed nor mind developed. Such people are active category, which is Karma Yoga, path of action, and underdeveloped, neither the intellect developed nor the mind developed, neither partially, it's underdeveloped. Such people are selecting the path of compulsion to get on to the spiritual path. They will be first executing this Hatha Yoga. So, depending upon your mental makeup, all these four yogas has to be administered. All these three yogas, the Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga and Jnana Yoga, all these three yogas put together help the seeker, help the spiritual aspirant to get rid of the bulk of desires. So the desires are the obstacle for you to achievement of the Supreme Self. So once you get out of these desires, then you reach the Uparati, the withdrawal, such a person which is able to who is able to concentrate on what he is doing, and with sustained concentration he gradually further drops his desires and left with the one thought, the thought of the supreme self, and no other desires of the mind towards the world. Such a person who is fully freed the mind from all the worldly desires and no more desires for the world, only one desire for achievement of the supreme self realization or God realization. Such a state of mind, an individual is qualified, fully eligible for practicing meditation. People take meditation without sufficient preparation. Meditation, no doubt, takes you to the ultimate state of enlightenment, but the meditation needs high level of preparation. The preparation is that the mind has to be vacant of all the worldly thoughts and desires of acquisition and enjoyment, attachments and aversions, likes and dislikes, and it is left with only one desire to merge with the self, to enlighten oneself, to become the self. That is the state. Once you naturally come to, such a mind is eligible for practicing meditation. So to practice meditation itself needs lot of preparation, for which the safe method is to develop general concentration, for which one has to practice these three yogas: karma yoga, action dedicated to the higher cause, to the supreme self, which purifies the mind of all desires, and bhakti yoga, remaining desires, do channelize at the mental level all desires towards the feelings, towards the higher altar through form or form worship, formless worship. Devotion is nothing but bhakti, nothing but surrender. It's just a quick understanding. The love and devotion both are of the same emotion. When the emotion, feelings channelized towards the lower or equal objects, you call it love. The same emotion which is springing from the mind is channelized towards the higher, greater than you, higher than you, which you call it devotion. So you love your dogs, you love your pets, you love your furniture, you love your spouse, you love your children, but you are devoted to parents, you are devoted to Guru, you are devoted to God, means anything higher, anything greater than you, the same emotion becomes devotion. So the devotion is nothing but surrender. You surrender to the areas of your ignorance. So you do not know medicine, you learn to surrender to the doctor. You do not know law, you surrender to the lawyer. You do not know engineering, you surrender to an architect or engineer. Surrender is nothing but devotion, that is bhakti. People misunderstand. Bhakti means prayer, and worship is nowadays it became a licensed beggary. So bhakti is not mechanical prayer, a ritualistic routine prayer to appease God, to satisfy your surface level emotion. Devotion, bhakti is liquidation of your ego, reduction of your ego and egocentric desires for the higher cause. Everything is Tara. You recognize the splash of divinity everywhere. That is the devotion, by understanding the areas of your ignorance. So, the vast area of ignorance everybody is fully caught up is your own identity. Who am I? Who are you? Where did you come from? When did you come from? How did you go from here? When did you go? When you will go? The vast area of this ignorance. When the chicken come first or the egg come first? Who is when the tree came first or the seed came first? You see the mango tree come from a mango seed. You see the mango seed come from mango tree. From where this tree and seed emerge from? The very basic fundamental questions. Who is the creator? What is this world made up of? Where from this world, this creation? Who created this world? So these fundamental questions are unknown. They are remain in unknown. It seems as though they are in utmost secrecy. That vast area of ignorance. Who is your father's 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 first father? This vast realm of ignorance, you must learn to surrender, and then you worship, you pray, you channelize your emotions and gain the knowledge of the self. So through Jnana Yoga, you start contemplating on the Vedantic truths of life. So Bhakti Yoga, which is the surrender to the areas of ignorance, channelizing your emotions towards the form or formless worship. To the extent you can conceive a form worship, you can conceive form and you have a personal form, personal God, or channelize your emotion, or an impersonal God, which is the formless worship. You purify your emotional personality and you reduce your desires further and you move towards the higher goal of Supreme Self. Then you get into the study, reflection, contemplation upon the Vedantic truths, which is the Jnana Yoga, the eternal principles of life and living. You got to study the Adi Shankaracharya in his Bhajagovindam. He says, what is the true knowledge? The Jnanam. The Jnanam is not erudition and scholarship. It is not mastering voluminous literature and by hearting reproducing. It is not nothing to do with your accumulation of your information. It is your awareness, acute awareness of the self. So you have to perform this constant awareness. What is that? Nitya, Anitya, Viveka, Vicharam. You got to think constantly on the distinction of the permanent, impermanent aspects of what the world offers to you and anchor yourself. Anchor to the permanent aspect, which is the spirit, the Atman, the discard the impermanent, which is the body, mind, intellect, and reach the Supreme Self. The Atman is the Jnanam, the right knowledge. With this right understanding, the acute awareness of the Supreme Self, the pure awareness, pure consciousness, without having any conditioning, without having any objectified knowledge. It is a subjective apprehension, not objective comprehension. The moment you understand this knowledge towards the Supreme Self, the self-knowledge, the Jnanam, you unfold the self-revelation, you reveal the self, then you got the fundamentals of knowledge. So through Bhakti Yoga, through Karma Yoga, through Jnana Yoga, you perform consistently according to the constitutional requirement of your personality, how much you're predominantly body active and predominantly emotional, predominant intellectual. Commensurate with that, you practice them, you will be able to reduce your bulk of desires, reduce your bulk of vasanas. Your mind is stable, your mind is free from the worldly worries and anxieties. It becomes calm and collective, composed and serene and tranquil. Such a mind which is free from the agitations and calm, you withdrawn from the world, and such a qualified mind, you start practicing concentration in your field of interest. Once you practice consistently, you get success and progress in your field of endeavor. Once you sufficiently execute your actions in this manner, your mind further purified of all the worldly thoughts, you are vacant of all worldly interests, and you are only interested in the discovery of the self. At that state of mind, you fix in single pointed thought concentration, which is the highest practice of meditation, naturally, not by compulsion. Such a meditation will lead you to the sustained meditation, continuous meditation. You will be able to achieve the enlightenment. This is the entire four yogas chapter gist. So this with this we conclude this chapter, and we will start with the next chapter, chapter 13, which is the renunciation, in the next class. Thank you very much. Hari Om.